Walking through the darkness, but now I can see your face. Oh, when you wanna go at the shadows, that's where the road and it close. When we wanna go at the shadows, get lost. Night cares off like a terrible comet. Everyone else except for the sun. You see the light just there. I don't wanna go close. Hold me close, and the music is playing. Deep in, I can feel what you're saying. There's a needle on her face, I tell you. I don't wanna go close.
Good.
Just make sure that's nice and tight.
Thank you. Okay, that's good. You have a card handy, Trevor? Over there.
No, I don't think you have any.
Okay. I'll get you. I'll take a picture of the van when I leave.
Okay.
Tell you about my number. Let's see what time. Right. See that? Everybody was just against the window here, just
The day that we took out a car in the rain is the day you forgot how to break and see how quickly the picture will change. Filled with fingers and voices and teeth, I still remember holding my hand against your face just before it was fade. Across the radio as it played, and you and me are still but the scenery moves. Well, why would it stop just 'cause suddenly there's one where there used to be two, and everything's quiet but you looks like the speaker ripped through the glow, still playing some compilation you made. Feels like a lifetime sitting alone, so I stop.
Family and friends, take this opportunity to welcome you. We're going to begin at this time. Just a couple more people arriving, but they'll settle in. Let's just first take a moment to ensure we've turned off our cell phones or anything that could be of an interruption. And let's really bring our full presence here for the next short while as we honor a life. One of the things I like to do is to start with a piece of music. A couple reasons why is to settle our hearts and settle our minds to prepare for this experience. And the second reason is to make you cry. Because it's going to be very helpful to release that emotion so we can step into a celebratory feel. So just know that your tears are welcome here. They are medicine for us all. So let's just take a moment to settle in and listen to a piece of music in a moment of reflection.
Early morning, there's a message on my phone. It's my mother saying, darling, please come home. I fear the worst, but how could you leave us all behind? There's so much to say, but there's so little time. So how do I say goodbye to someone who's been with me for my whole damn life? You gave me my name and the color of your eyes. See your face when I look at mine. So how do I say goodbye when I couldn't? You always saw the best in me. Right or
Well, Ed's legacy here lights these candles in memory of the light he was in their lives, the warmth that he brought in their lives, and how just like these candles flicker throughout this service, Ed will remain a flicker in their hearts from this day forward. 3 candles that they've lit to represent each of them, and the tall one to honor our Ed here today. We also burn this incense with the thoughts and in the spirit of our intentions and our prayers, that they will, like this smoke, be lifted to reach Ed where he may be. I don't know about you guys, but Lily's got my vote for best dressed today. Ed would have wanted us all to show up like this. If tears could build a stairway and memories a lane, we'd walk right up to heaven and bring you home again. No farewell words were spoken, no time to say goodbye. You were gone before we knew it, and only God knows why. Our hearts, they still ache with sadness, and tears, they steady flow. 'Cause what it meant to love and lose you, Ed, no one will ever know. But we know that you would want for us to mourn for you no more, but to remember all the happy times, and that life has more in store. But since you'll never be forgotten, we pledge to you today, at a special place within our hearts is where you'll always stay. Friends and family, I take this opportunity to officially welcome you here. My name is Godwin Young, and it is my honor to be here as your celebrant today to walk this part of the journey alongside you. Our time in this setting will be about 45 to 60 minutes as we have various tributes and ways we're going to honor this life today. We're going to celebrate this life today. We also want to thank those of you that have joined us on the live stream. We think of your hearts today, as I know that you would prefer to be here with us, but we're grateful that you have the opportunity to attend in this way. And just know that all the hearts and minds that are here are with you as well, as you grieve from another place and space. And I speak specifically to his parents, John and Nancy. Our hearts are with you. If Eddie wanted to say anything, or wanted me to say anything to begin today's service, it would probably be, "What's up, suckers?" Today we gather to celebrate the life of Ed Wu, a remarkable man whose journey through this world was filled with adventure, laughter, and an unwavering love for those that were lucky enough to know him. Today is not just a time of remembrance and sadness and mourning, but we will honor those things because it's important. But it's to focus on that little dash in between those dates there. That little dash represents so much more than just a little dash. It represents his whole life. Short life. So today we come to honor that dash and talk about the things that made up his dash, the beautiful connections forged, the friendships, the family. So on behalf of the family, thank you for coming to fill a seat today. And this is a safe space, a sacred space for us to embrace all of our emotions, our sadness, our anger. It's all valid. It's going to be okay to cry. It's welcome here. It's going to be okay to laugh. It's going to be okay to smile. We're here to comfort one another and to build a relationship with our new reality, our new experience, a life with the absence of Ed. And while we hold our sadness today, we will reflect on the wonderful moments that we were fortunate enough to have with him. So today, through some heartfelt tributes, some music, although he wasn't a good music guy, just didn't really have any taste in music. I had to cancel Gasolina because we're not playing that here. But we'll remember the moments that made him special. You know, with photos, we'll revisit the laughter. We'll think about his kindness, his warmth that he brought to each and every one of you. And while we do this, we're going to connect to those emotions and feel them. And it gives our hearts an opportunity for a little bit of healing. But there's no timeline for this. There's no getting better by next year. It's really in your own time. Asking for what you need from one another as family and as community. And though he is no longer here with us in that physical form, that smile, that laughter, his beautiful spirit, it's yours forever. So we come to say, until we meet again, Ed. Until we meet again. So thanks again for being here to commemorate this wonderful man. And it's my hope that we find peace today, knowing that the memory of him will live on in your hearts forever. And as much as today is about Eddie, it's about him, but it's for each of you. It's for his family members, his friends, his community, his family. We think of his parents and how difficult this must be for them. Not only that they've lost a son, but that they can't be here to experience this warmth and this connection. A loving husband to, as he would refer, my wife, Shauna. A devoted dad to Lily and Christoph. A beloved brother to Gina. We think of partner Tom and, of course, their kids, Timo and Taro. We think of Michael and Sylvie and Noah and Maya. We also lift up sister-in-law Corey and Eric and his niece Riley, his mother-in-law Maureen. As I list those names, please know that everyone here is here to honor Ed, but they're here for you. They're here to show you that your loved one touched their life and made a difference in their life. So they're here in the spirit of gratitude to say thank you for sharing your Ed with us. You know, I have the greatest vantage point from this lectern because I get to look into the eyes of this family and see their hurt and then see the smile on another as we will continue to do for them and with them. Luckily for me, I don't have to do all the talking. So we're going to hear from our first presenter. I'm going to invite Sister Gina to come forward and share her words. Thanks so much, Gina. Take the time you need.
Am I supposed to move this? I'm super short. Hi, I'm Gina. I'm Ed's little sister. When Ed and I were kids, he told me so many jokes. And he tested about 1 million jokes on me. And luckily I was too young to understand how stupid they were. Why he let me hang out with them so much. Growing up, we watched all the same, imitated all the wrestlers, Roddy Piper, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And he remembered that was my favorite. My favorite because at one point he bought me an official WWF Ricky the Dragon Steamboat figurine, which I still have today. We watched every single Arnold Schwarzenegger movie together, every single one. And we memorized all of Arnold's famous lines. And we would have Arnold-offs with our cousin Gilbert, where we would have a contest who would remember the most Arnold quotes, and Ed would always win. It wasn't until I was older that I realized that he had been training me. He was training me to have the exact same sense of humor as him. And his training was strong. I remember when I was a teenager, I went to the movies with my friends, and I don't remember which movie, but I remember I burst out laughing at this one point when no one else was laughing, and all my friends were so embarrassed. Be quiet, you're so embarrassing. But when I was laughing, I heard from across the movie theater another person burst out laughing at the exact same time as me. And sure enough, it was Ed. When we left the movie theater, I saw him leaving with his friends. And they're, Ed, was that you laughing like crazy? It's like, yeah, was that you? And we laughed and laughed and laughed. Because only us two knuckleheads would be cracking up when at something that no one else found funny at all. Like Mr. Miyagi, Ed would only come out of retirement when he saw true potential. And Ed came out of retirement the day Lily was born. It made Ed so happy that she laughed at all his jokes. And she just gets it. And he was so proud that she could make him laugh so easily. And in Lily, I see the training was so strong. When we were in our 20s, we lived in the same apartment building in Montreal, and we hung out every single day. my friends were his friends and his friends were my friends. Because every time his friends would call him to hang out, he would always say, "Is it okay that my sister comes?" And he would always bring me. When he decided to move out west, we all went out on his last night in Montreal to celebrate. And so many of his friends came out to say goodbye. At the end of the night, when he finally had to leave because he had a plane to catch the next morning, I remember that I just lost it. I started sobbing, and I was screaming, "Don't leave, don't leave." And he started crying. And we just kept saying, "I love you, I love you," until he finally had to go. And it was so hard, because back then, he was my best friend. But had I known then that him going out west would lead him to meeting Shauna and Christoph, I probably wouldn't have been so sad, because his family was the best thing that ever happened to him. Shauna, Christoph, and Lily, being a husband and dad, we saw him grow into a better human. He became kinder and more patient and more loving. He would call our brother Michael and ask for parenting advice. And Ed and I would call each other and laugh at all the dumb things our kids did. And it was fun. It was so fun for the three of us to reconnect as parents. Last Christmas, we bought one of those big glass digital frames for our parents, and we uploaded a bunch of photos of our families. And Ed uploaded over 100 pictures. And in each one of those pictures, he was laughing and smiling, and he was so happy. Because in each one of those photos, he was with his family. And I offered to my parents to hang the frame up on their wall or set it up on a shelf, but my mom always said no. Instead, she keeps that frame beside the chair in the dining room, because when she sits in that chair, she likes to take the frame and put it on her lap. And she just scrolls through the photos. And she says, "This is how I will remember my son, because in here he's always happy." And I think that's how we should all remember him.
Thank you so much. So folks, this is a celebration of life, and I hope you don't find it irreverent, but it does take a great deal of courage to get up here and share sentiment with someone that you love so dearly. So please join me in honoring by showing our appreciation for such a beautiful tribute. Hook a brother up. Oh, thank you for those beautiful words and sentiments shared, and such a powerful story about the picture frame and mom and dad, as we know that this is just not the normal chain of events. You know, parents aren't supposed to lose their children. And you know, attending these services and celebrations of life, we also want to honor that, you know, there are others here that have their own significant losses over the course of time, and gathering here, it does conjure up that emotion as we reflect on those we've lost. You know, so they say that there's a couple things in life that we have no control over. And you know what those are. But what we do have control over is how we spend our time. And as we've just learned and will continue to learn, Ed spent his time creating memories and laughing. And laughter is beautiful medicine. It's good for the soul, it's good for the spirit. It brightens people's days. And we'll see some of those photos in a short while as we continue on our our walk here, our journey through this commemoration. But if I can invite Cousin Gilbert to come forward and share at this time. Thank you.
I didn't know it was going to be a photo here of Ed. So, unfortunately, my sister couldn't be here today, so she wanted me to read a message for you guys and to Ed. Not long ago, I told the story of time a bunch of us, Ed included, went late night drunk tubing in the middle of winter in Mount Royal. I had suffered a minor tubing injury, so when Ed dropped me off, he brought me to the front door, rang the bell, and ran off as fast as he could, so as not to face my mom. Needless to say, it was a wild and fun night. It turns out, I have countless Ed stories that I talk about all the time. As cousins, our stories go way back to when we were little. I remember looking forward to Sunday dim sums because we'd all play together with Ed, Michael, and Gina at their house afterwards. We had ping pong tournaments, football games, and the infamous roller skating. Michael and Ed ruled the rink with their roller tricks in 80s style. My best childhood memories were spent with my cousins. Out of all the cousins, Ed was the funniest, and that says a lot because we're a hilarious bunch. His sense of humor was on another level, always joking or saying witty things. I can't keep track of the number of times we had literal belly-aching laughs together. I went through my old boxes last year and found the birthday cards he made me so many years ago. On one of them, he drew a cartoon of me with a rice bowl cut. It wasn't very flattering, but it still made me chuckle. Not only was Ed funny, he was clever, artistic, and audacious. The fact that everyone has so many Ed stories is a testament of the many people he touched with his charisma, humor, warmth, and energy. I want to thank Ed for being a kind, caring, considerate, and awesome cousin. We had a blast together, and our cousin bond is unbreakable. I take solace in knowing that he is somewhere up in the heavens, smiling and watching over Lily, Christoph, and Shauna. Rest in peace, dear cousin. You'll be deeply missed, and I will always be laughing with you. And lastly, I will never stop sharing my Ed stories. So now I actually want to share some of my Ed stories. One day, many years ago, Ed was sitting at the dinner table, and his mom told him, "I don't think you're my son." She said, "You don't really look like the rest of us, and you certainly don't act like the rest of us. I think when you're a baby, someone at the hospital switching at birth." And Ed laughed, and he thought it was hilarious. But I think his mom was kind of serious. You see, Ed, he did stand out in the family with his oddball sense of humor and his unique way of looking at things. He was always cracking us up, but above all else, Ed really loved to crack himself up. Because even at a young age, Ed was always searching for someone, anyone, to pull his finger. And if he declined, he'd always insist, "Do it. Come on, do it." And if you did do it, he would never disappoint. Sometimes he would rip a long, wet one, sometimes be a short, squeaky one, but you're never left empty-handed. After all, he did have a reputation to uphold. And after, he let out a big laugh, especially if you're disgusted by it. Now, growing up, there were a lot of cousins. You can kind of divide us into two groups, the older cousins and the younger cousins. Ed was 5 years older than me, so he was an older cousin and me a younger cousin. So it wasn't exactly like we hung out with each other. We see each other during family gatherings, like dinners at our uncle's restaurant, or the families go over to each other's houses, or we'd have family picnics in the summer. But we did see each other on Sundays because our parents all signed us up for Chinese school. It was an old church in Montreal's Chinatown, and we were all terrible at it. Like, we were there for a few years, and we kept repeating the same grade because we kept failing. It was quite embarrassing. But for some reason, my sister and cousin Flora excelled at it. Like, they were so far ahead. They were put in their own special class. So perhaps they were the ones switched at birth. But growing up as a younger cousin, you always looked up to the older cousins because they were the first ones who got their driver's license. They were the first ones who got to stay out late at night. And they were the first ones who got to dress the way they wanted. For years, me and my brother would get hand-me-downs from Ed and Mike. And my dad would bring home a garbage bag full of clothes and be like, yay, more hand-me-downs. But by the time it got to me, it wasn't even second-hand, it was like fourth-hand. So I always felt the older cousins got to do all the cool stuff. And I wondered what it'd be like to be an older cousin. Until one day, my sister came up to me and said, do you want to go to a party? And I was 13, almost 14. And my sister was Ed's age. And I had never been to a party before. And I said, sure, I'll go. And then there was a Halloween bash at my sister's school that night. And she said, but you have to dress up. And I said, all right. So she comes to her closet and she said, I know. You can go as Norman Bates from Psycho, and I'll go as the mother. I said, sure, whatever, if that's what it takes. So we got dressed up, we took off, hopped on the bus, and headed downtown. And to this day, I have no idea what we told my parents. And we got to the school, the main building. It was a big, dark room like this, and it's filled with university students. And there was music blaring, lights flashing, and we met with my sister's friends, and we hit the dance floor. And then this tall, dark lady walks up to us, dressed all in black. Black blazer, black mini skirt, black nylon, long red nails, short hair, and dark sunglasses. And this lady said, hey guys. And that's when we realized it was Ed. And then after the laughter subsided, he said, Ed, what are you supposed to be? And he said, I'm Grace Jones, can't you tell? I said, wow. Like, it was impressive. You had to admire the effort. Like the outfit, the hair, the makeup, the nails, not to mention the dance moves. It's impressive indeed. And then Ed went off and grabbed a beer. He came back. He said, take a big chug. And he handed it to me. I never had a beer before. I never even tasted beer. So I took that beer and I took the biggest chug I could. And I almost threw it up. And I gave it back to him. And he looked and he chuckled. He said, what? That's it? And there we were, me and Ed sharing our first beer together. The first of many we'd share later on in life. So we partied till 3 in the morning that night. And I went home, I went to bed. I fell asleep thinking, wow, that's what it's like to be an older cousin. As a side note, when my sister rummaged through her boxes, she said she found a newspaper clipping from the school newspaper with a photo of Ed in front of a urinal dressed as Grace Jones. So, now, our dads and two of Ed's uncles came in this country as Chinese immigrants. And as Chinese immigrants, they did something quite unusual. They got into the laundry business. So they opened up multiple locations in downtown Montreal. And as their children were expected to work there, starting at a very young age. And child labor laws? What child labor laws? What's that? Sounds made up. So we worked there during the long, hot summers, and we'd be working there with the steam blasting in our faces, and steaming the jackets, steaming the pants, steaming the shirts, loading the machines, unloading the machines. And it was tough. And it was like 30 degrees outside, it felt like it was 35 to 40 inside. And we'd just be drenched in sweat. It was a veritable sweatshop. But we learned some valuable lessons working the dry cleaners. We learned hard work, discipline, and learned the value of actually having a job. But the biggest lesson we learned working at the dry cleaners is that we did not want to grow up to be dry cleaners. No way. And so one summer, instead of working the dry cleaners, Ed got a job selling vacuum cleaners. And I didn't know this. So during dinner, my parents said, Ed's coming over later. I said, really? What for? And then so after dinner, the doorbell rings. I open the door, and I see Ed standing there. Shirt, tie, dress pants, dress shoes. Under one arm, a vacuum cleaner. Under the other arm, he had a binder. I said, wow, this looks serious. Ed was all business. Ed was here to sell us a vacuum cleaner. So I opened the door, and I let him in. And we go downstairs, and we all gather in the basement. Now, for those of you who don't know my dad, he is the most frugal man you'll ever meet. Like, believe me. So before Ed even came into the door, I knew there was no way my dad was gonna buy a vacuum cleaner. Like, I knew it, my brother knew it, my sister knew it, my mom knew it. I think Ed knew it too. Because we already had a vacuum cleaner, and it worked. And even if we did need one, there was no way my dad was gonna splurge on a brand new fancy Filter Queen. It was called the Filter Queen. But Ed starts his presentation anyways. So he takes his binder, he stands it up vertically, he starts flipping through the pages like a slideshow. All the specs, all the graphs, all the diagrams. And then he shows us all the attachments that go with the hose for the Filter Queen. Then he puts all those attachments on this ring, a plastic ring, where they normally sit. And he takes that ring, and he puts it on top of the Filter Queen. Ah, a crown for a queen. Like it was. And then Ed stood up, and he said, allow me to demonstrate the power of the Filter Queen. He picked up the vacuum cleaner and it beelined straight to my brother's room, because we all knew how gross my brother's room was back then. Sorry, Howard. Then my brother sprang up and he intercepted Ed. He said, Ed, where are you going? And Ed's like, I'm going to vacuum your room. And my brother's like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. No. And Ed's like, come on. So Ed finally makes his way through. He starts vacuuming my brother's floor, his bed, his sheets, his pillows. He comes back out and he opens the vacuum cleaner. He takes out the filter. He says, come take a look. Look how disgusting this is. How can you afford to live without a Filter Queen? So we all gathered around, we took a look, and he was right, it was disgusting. I had never seen such compelling evidence. It's like Ed had this all planned out. It was like his closing argument. it was like, I rest my case. Open and shut, case closed. And then we all turned our attention to my dad, but my dad held firm. He said, Edward, we don't need a new vacuum cleaner. And this vacuum cleaner is too expensive. But then Ed would have his counter argument. He'd say, well, this does so much more than your vacuum cleaner, and even doubles as an air purifier. And then back and forth he went. And you have to understand, from the start to end, this lasted over 3 hours. But then, sadly, in the end, Ed went home empty-handed. The following week, the doorbell rings, and I open the door, and I see Ed. Shirt, tie, dress pants, dress shoes. Under one arm, the filter queen. Under the other arm, a binder. Ed was back. But this time, he brought his boss. You see, we later learned that Ed was in the running that month for most sales, and the guy he was competing with had pulled ahead by one vacuum cleaner. So Ed was doubly determined. So I led him in and go downstairs again. And Ed starts his presentation again. And then, but this time, his boss would interject from time to time, almost as if they were tag teaming. Like they were trying to work my dad over, soften him up, like from different angles. It was like the Avengers trying to take down Thanos. And this was another marathon session. And then we were all rooting for Ed. And then finally, my dad caved. He said, fine, I'll buy it. And we were all so overjoyed, but mostly because it's finally over. Thank God. So maybe that was Ed's path. Maybe Ed's path was sales or business or something along those lines. So Ed went to university and he got a degree in marketing. And soon after, he started working at Sun Life, selling insurance and other financial products to clients. I remember one night, we're at my uncle's restaurant. It was a family dinner, large gathering. And Ed was gonna be late because he was coming straight from work. So we're about to start dinner, and in walks Ed, dressed in a shiny new suit. And he was looking like Mr. GQ, like Mr. Wall Street. And we're all like, whoa, is that Ed? Is that cousin Ed? Because nobody in our family back then wore a suit to go to work. In the parents' mind, if you wore a suit to go to work, it meant like you made it. It was a step up. It meant like you weren't doing hard labor or you weren't doing factory work. Like Ed was wearing suits. He wasn't steaming them anymore. So you can sense the pride coming from his parents. Like they were sitting at the next table. I didn't even have to look over. I could feel the pride coming. It was almost blinding. Ed also bought a new car, a black, shiny Toyota Celica, tinted windows. So Ed was making money. Ed was all grown up. He was all grown up. But sadly, it didn't last. After a while, Ed hated it. 9 to 5 in a business suit wasn't Ed's style. So he left that job. He grew his hair long, cut off jeans and flip-flops. He bought an old beat-up Jeep, and he lived in an apartment building that our dads owned, and he worked there just collecting the rent and helping out with the accounting. And eventually, he found his way back to the dry cleaners. And that was his life for a while, and Ed was stuck in a rut. He needed a change. He needed to get out of town, so he packed up his car and went to Calgary. And there he actually crashed with a friend. He met some new friends, did some odd jobs, and he was waiting tables at the time. He actually told me later on that, man, I was a terrible waiter. I can't believe I lasted that long. But at that time, I actually moved out here to Vancouver. I studied animation, and I was working in the industry. And Ed called me up and said, hey, how are you liking that animation thing? I said, I'm digging it, I think I made the right decision. And he said, really? Because I'm thinking about doing it myself. I said, do it, like what's there to think about? He said, well, I gotta make a portfolio, I got nothing right now, and I think I have to go in for an interview, and I said, dude, you can draw. Just put something together, you got nothing to lose. So he applied, and a few months later, he got accepted to Capilano College in North Van. And that was awesome, because Ed was the only family I had out here, and we saw each other every weekend. We went for all-you-can-eat sushi, went snowboarding, went hiking, or partying, like drinks at the Morrissey, or late nights at Wonton Noodle House. But more importantly, Ed loved what he was doing. Like he'd talk about his classes, and he'd talk about the stuff he was working on, and he talked about the fun he was having with his classmates. And then one time I went over to his place, and he said, do you want to check out my short film I made for my film class? I said, sure. And he popped in the tape, and he said, it's called Hillbilly Clapfest. And so I hit play, and I didn't know what I was watching. Basically, the whole film was his roommate Trevor, dressed as a hillbilly, sitting in a rocking chair and practicing his clapping for the upcoming clapping competition. And he was talking hillbilly gibberish to himself, and that was the whole movie. And I thought it was hilarious. So before I left, Ed gave me a copy. And the following week, I took it to work. And I told the animators, you guys want to check out my cousin Ed's short film? And he said, sure. So they all gathered around my cubicle. I popped it in, I hit play. And they had the same reaction I did. Like silence and confusion, and then pure laughter. And then more people came over to see what the commotion was about. And then even more people. Like, all of a sudden, there was a huge crowd around my desk. And it was like raucous laughter throughout. And the president of the company sat one section over, and he sent his secretary out to tell us to shut it down. We're being too rowdy, too raucous. So we all dispersed, but for months, people were still talking about Hillbilly Clapfest. Ed was ahead of his time. The legend of Ed Wu was born. So Ed graduated from Capilano College, top of his class. He started working in industry, various studios in town. And there was a time when actually he got a job at EA, a contract job, and I saw him every day, we had lunch every day, which is really awesome. But I think contract work is what suited Ed, because he worked for 6 to 8 months, then he'd bugger off for 3 or 4 months, and he'd go travel the world. And he did this for a while. And every time, his landlord would let him sublet his place. And there were even times when actually he got contract work overseas, which he really liked. So he would travel the globe and he'd come back and we'd meet up and he'd tell me all about it. And that was his life for many years. And I used to, by this time I actually moved to California. And I would still fly up here and I would still see Ed and we'd always meet up and have drinks. And at the time, I actually had another animator come up as well. His name was Eric, but we called him Fat Cobain because he looked like Kurt Cobain, but just fatter. He was also a giant goofball, so him and Ed really hit it off. So one time we flew up, and I called up Ed. I said, Ed, let's go grab a beer. And he said, sure, but I might have a friend come join us later. I said, that's cool. So we headed out, went to the bar, we had some drinks, and then his friend showed up, and Ed said, hey guys, meet my friend Shauna. I said, oh, Shauna, it's not the usual animator dude was expecting. So we met Shauna, we chatted, got to know her, had a few drinks, had a few laughs. And then the evening was winding down, we decided to head out. And we stood outside, and Shauna was going one direction, and the three of us going the opposite direction. And we said bye to Shauna, and we took off. And then Ed said, "Hang on." And he turned around, he walked back to Shauna, and it was almost like a scene out of a movie. Ed walked up, almost like in slow motion, and he kind of took Shauna by, held her by the face, and gave her this long, deep, passionate kiss. Like, it was very dramatic. Like, if it was a movie, you'd probably say, it's a bit much. And then I turned to Fat Cobain, and I said, "I think Ed's drunk." And then after this kiss, Shauna walks off, and Ed walks back to us as if nothing happened. And he's like, "All right, let's go." And I said, "Ed, what was that about?" I said, "It's like, what was what about?" I said, "Oh, that. Oh, I guess we're kind of going out. I don't know. Nah, let's get out of here." Ed Wu playing it cool. So I've known Ed all my life, and he was like the last guy you suspect of ever settling down. But that's what he did. He got married, he bought a place, became a father, and it was a very different life than before. And I'd never seen him happier. And it was like Ed was all grown up. He was all grown up. So I still fly up here a lot, and every time I call up Ed and we hang out, I go over and hang out with Ed, Shauna, Christoph, and Lily. And I see how the kids have grown, and I see how Ed had grown as a husband and a father. And oftentimes, we sit at dinner table, and we crack open beer, and we just talk for hours. And the last time I was here, we had one of our last talks. He talked about his future. He talked about how 60 was just around the corner. He talked about retiring, when he was going to retire, if he was going to retire. And if he did retire, what was he going to do? And looking back, I should have said, "Ed, when you retire, you should write a book. You should write a book about all your wacky adventures, all the places you've been, all the people you've met, and all the things you've done. It will be a roller coaster of emotions. It will be a page turner. It will be a national bestseller. It will be required reading in every school. It will be your gift to the rest of humanity. School children will sing songs about you." But sadly, it's up to us to share those stories, to keep those stories alive, to keep the legend of Ed Wu alive. Because Ed wasn't switched at birth. Ed was just one of a kind. Rest in peace, Ed.
Thank you, Cousin Gilbert. I think I need to hire you to speak at my service one day, huh? Wow, beautiful tribute. Thank you for that. I do have to there are parents here, and we want to just, of course, clarify a few things that we are not condoning drinking at 13 years of age. For you younger folk, we're not condoning that. We are condoning asking people during the reception to go ahead and pull your finger. That's welcome here. Absolutely. And if you do have to end up selling vacuums one day, then just give it your all like Ed did. Yeah. Friends and family, let's take a mental break from the talking, and we're going to watch a slideshow here and reflect on the memories and images and pictures of his amazing smile and beautiful energy that he shared with us all.
Well, I guess it would be nice if I could touch your body. I know not everybody
Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful tribute. You know, it's, you know, in this front row here, it's tears and laughter and smiles and, you know, reflection and seeing some of those photos that evoke those emotions. It's very, very hard, but very beautiful as well. These are the ways that he'll forever be remembered and cherished. You know, I love when we think about his tenure in the animation world. His resume is thick, you know. He's left his mark in so many places. Snowpiercer, Aquaman, Godzilla vs. Kong, Black Panther. There's even some Barbie stuff in there. The Meg, The Huntsman, Furious 7, Terminator. You know, many people left comments. So this one from Sam says, Ed Wu was the jelly donut the RSP animation team needed. He brought this positive energy to the project that made any frustrating days a breeze. Along with being a great person to be around, Ed was also a highly skilled animator. He was given some of the hardest and longest shots on both projects and took care of them mafia style. Ed's talent as well as his great personality make him an ideal addition to any team, and I would hope to work with him again someday. You know, beyond the titles and accolades, it was his passion and his ability to bring joy, you know, to everything he did, every place he went. He just walked with that aura of laughter and happiness, and optimism. He was quite an adventurer. He loved to travel and has been all over the place. And I understand he would share those adventures, you know. He would document and send them an email so people could, you know, vicariously live through his beautiful childlike spirit. He was all about fun, and that's how he'll be remembered. You know, I understand that when these two first met, I think as it was shared, Shauna was attending parties at Graham's house. You know, there'd be these events there, and Shauna would attend as a single mom, single white female. And yeah, there was all be couples there, you know, and she'd show up, you know, I don't want to keep coming, I'm alone, this, that, and the other. And I guess Graham, it was the fireworks. It was fireworks night, the Festival of Light or one of those things. And, you know, Shauna said, yeah, okay, I'll come. But this time Graham decided to invite his downstairs neighbor named Ed, you know, and once Shauna laid eyes on him, the fireworks really started to fly that night. But, you know, she had to go to Graham and say, what the F, bro? Where's this guy been? He's been downstairs the whole time? It's the first time you're inviting him up? And they hit it off, you know? They decided to exchange numbers and, you know, they didn't plan on a date yet, but no communication was happening. And Sean was like, another flake. This guy's flaked on me. He's not even gonna call, doesn't message. There was some confliction going on with them connecting, but when they finally did, they started to date, and it's all history from there. You know, this is the stuff that memories are made of. You never know where our paths will take us, who we'll meet, who we'll fall in love with, who we'll choose as our family. You know, there was a point where Ed said, you know what, I can't do this every other weekend thing with you anymore. I'm kind of fed up with this. I don't know if I can continue in this way. I want more. I want more. He was choosing to be Christoph's dad. He was choosing Shauna. He chose to step into that role wholeheartedly and loved every minute of it. You know, they say success can be defined in many ways. And with Ed, success for him was the people in this front row. And if he had to leave some words of wisdom, he'd probably quote Homer Simpson, who said, you can have all the money in the world, but there's one thing you'll never have, a dinosaur. As she's holding her beautiful dinosaur. It's okay to cry. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to smile. This is what a celebration of life is. To honor our mourning, to honor our pain, but to know that there will be tough days, but there will also be good days as we continue to reflect and remember this very special, special man. I do have 2 crowd participation components to this service today. There will be an open segment for someone that did wish to get up and share a memory. Those of you that cannot conjure up the courage to come forward, I can respect that. We can bring a microphone to you. But also there's these beautiful postcards that you saw when you came in. You're welcome to jot your memories down on here and leave them in the basket that's been provided. You know, I always get a miff when people don't do this, because if you think, you know, of a little girl sitting on her bed one night and reading all the beautiful postcards and messages, or Christoph seeing them around the house and just picking one up one day and like, yeah, look at what this person said about Dad, and how that can affect them and how that can impact their journey. So please, before you leave, everyone fill out one of these postcards for this family. It'd be greatly appreciated. But the first crowd participation piece that that I'm inviting you to participate in is I asked the family members, you know, when you hear the name Ed, what's the first word you think of? I asked Gina, and Gina's like, idiot. Okay, but that's their sense of humor. It's all good. I asked Corey, and she said, fun. Hoi Bing, I said, okay, what about you? What's the word that comes to mind for you? Goofy. Shauna said, playful. And Lily Bean said, Dad. So how about you? Just yell it out from where you are. What's the first word that comes to mind when you think of Ed? Knucklehead. Fun. Woo-woo. Whoa. Nice one. Any others? Baby. Sorry? Baby? Baby?
So he would, with my son, first thing he would say is, you're a baby. Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice. So he'd always go back and forth, you're a baby, with your son. Thank you. Any others? First word. Rock solid dude. Absolutely. Beautiful. Well, thank you for that. It is, again, those messages, and just for kids and family to hear those words, like, wow, that's what people thought of my dad. A rock solid dude. Yeah. Thank you so much. Let's invite our next speaker to come forward. If I could have Tommy McKenna, that'd be great.
Hey, everybody. I am Tommy, and I've known Ed for some time. Sorry, I prepared some words, but they're getting lost on me. Frankly, what can you say about someone that has completely changed the way that you interact with and appreciate the world that you live in? And I've been kicking that around for the last few weeks, trying to work on a proper fitting sentiment to remember Ed by. And last night around 12 a.m. I came to the conclusion that you don't. All you can do is give a little slice of your memories and sprinkle in as much love as you can. I met Ed in September 1999. It was our first class in the animation program at Capilano College. The subject was life drawing, or nude figure drawing. And we were all arranged in a circle around a central stage upon which the model would pose for us while we drew. Ed was sitting straight across from me, the exit behind his back. The class started immediately and the model came out. We all drew for an hour and a half or so. And then there was a break. The entire class stepped out to stretch their legs, go to the bathroom, get a drink, whatever. And Ed just sat there, aloof, ignoring the bustle of everyone passing by. And I thought to myself, throughout the entire session, he seemed detached, calm, focused on drawing. And for some reason, it annoyed me. I guess I thought he looked a bit arrogant. I was a young guy, 20. It's the first time away from home. I came from Ontario, small town. I knew that being the best artist in my class wasn't going to cut it in a school, in a class filled with artists. So I was a bit insecure. At any rate, I finished up my drawing and decided, I don't know what I decided. I got up and walked straight across the room, stood beside his easel, tried hard not to look at his drawings because that'd be rude. I said, "Hi, my name's Tommy. How's it going?" And he just looked up at me. "Hey there, I'm Ed Wu." And then he darted a quick eye over his shoulder, looked at the door, made sure no one was there. And he said, "I didn't know we would be drawing naked people." Yuck. I laughed, and needless to say, we got on quite well after that. Hours could be spent talking about how funny Ed was and will, and how he continually caused a stir with his many various adventures. But instead, I'd like to talk about the Ed that I came to know, both as we got older and in retrospect. Beneath or adjacent to the goofball jokes and thrill-seeking machismo, there was a guy trying to sort out his life, trying to balance his appetite for experiencing the world and having something rooted and solid that he could call his own. He wanted a future, but on his own terms, and was willing to do what he needed to make that happen. That first day, we left that class and broke for lunch, and he and I both walked home together. Turns out he was renting an apartment in the same complex as me. We chatted the whole way there. I found out he was a bit older than me, and he had already gone to college, got a degree, worked a job, the tie, the collar, sold vacuum cleaners. And it hadn't worked out. He didn't like it. But he was proud. He didn't like that, from a certain perspective, he didn't have a focus in life, according to folks that he knew, perhaps his parents. But he was searching. He had gone to Calgary, had some adventures, was a waiter, and he got it in his ear about animation. And as Gilbert has mentioned, there's a progression that brought him to Capilano, uncertain, unsure, untested, aside from the test that we took to get into the school. And he was uncomfortable that first day. He said he was broke. He wasn't sure, where the class was going after drawing naked people for 4 hours. And he wasn't sure if he was going to stick around. He did for the first couple weeks, and we got to know each other a bit better. And thank God, one of our instructors was super stoked about a new program, computer program called Flash. It's going to reinvent the animation industry. And he also knew of a website called eCards that would pay you $50 to $200 per card for little cheaply done, crude, animated greeting cards. And they were crude, but they're not in the sense that they were rude, just mostly really crappy. And Ed jumped on it. He got the program, and he spent his nights and weekends working. He taught himself how to use the program well enough to submit, and he submitted as many cards as they would let him. While the rest of us were working hard, and it was hard. We spent a lot of nights working till 1 or 2 on our projects, trying to figure out how to animate or learn perspective. And Ed was there with us. And then he'd go home and he'd work. And he felt better about the course of action that he had taken. Animation was very much uncertain. He knew his cousin and a few other people that had made some money doing it. But now he was independent. He was making some money while he was learning. And, beg your pardon. He worked his butt off all year, and by the end of that first year, we all had a lot of laughs, a lot of fun, but Ed had made enough money to not only float himself through the summer, he said he had made enough to float him through the next entire year of school, so he'd be back. And then while the rest of us were scrambling around trying to find odd jobs to get our own money up to par to make it through another year, he hopped on a plane and went to India for 2 months, backpacking. He kept us entertained with intermittent email updates involving temples and bazaars, photos of him chasing a dung beetle up a sand dune, living on lakes filled with houseboats. I guess you can't really talk too much about Ed without at least one adventure, but the point was that he was incredibly focused and adaptable. In fall, we resumed classes and pressed on learning. In terms of the schoolwork, Ed wasn't at the head of the class. He wasn't the strongest craftsman or draftsman, but through the sheer force of his genial charisma, he took what would have been a friendly class dynamic and truly galvanized our friendships. Aside from Ed, several of my closest friendships started in that class. But without Ed, I doubt I would have gotten to know any of them as deeply and joyfully as I did. It was a curious side effect of Ed's presence. He rarely tried to organize gatherings or outings, and yet in almost everything we did as a group, he was somehow a central component, even if only by deciding to join in. He'd jump on any venture that was proposed and would increase its value by simply being there. Any mundane task became some grand adventure that you didn't want to miss out on, even just running to the store so you could pick up some dungarees. He was sort of like both the flame and the moth, drawing us all into everything he was involved in while being himself unable to resist the pull of a new experience. When we graduated in 2D animation, the local animation industry was in pretty bad spot, and so work was not an option. It took a little time to consider his options. This was his plan. It had to work. He spent a couple months searching, checking for jobs, and as opportunities dried up or were not availing, he made the call to double down and come back to school for one more year in the 3D animation program at CAP. He and another classmate of ours did this, and the two of them, being between homes, slept in my living room for the duration of the summer while they waited to hear if they were accepted, which they were. They then found a new house, rented a small apartment, which was very quickly renamed Monkey Mansion. Ed is a great person for naming things. Fatbot, Stretch Baldy, Knucklehead, Longshanks, all nicknames that he somehow forged without contemplation and yet stuck to their recipients well beyond our childish interactions. I myself was known in a small group as Boatface for several years. The 8-month course of 3D animation went much like the previous 2 years. Ed worked hard, mastered 3D animation, and made several more good friends. The local industry was still fairly dry when he graduated, but he wouldn't let that stop him. He submitted his final film to as many animation film festivals or online websites as he could find, and surprisingly quickly, he was offered a job, first in Calgary at a small production, and then an even better offer to work on a larger show in Scotland. And without hesitation, he hopped on a plane and flew to the UK. His hard work had paid off. He was not only starting a career of gainful employment, but the very nature of the work afforded him the opportunity to travel the world while doing it. And so he did. For those of us who remained in Vancouver, and for me in particular, Ed's departure was bittersweet. I was, of course, very happy for Ed's opportunity, but at 23 years old, I had already made the realization that folks tended towards losing touch and moving on as they go their separate ways without something like school or a home to tie them together. And more so, the further away one went. I had built much of my sense of community around Ed. He was a common thread through most of the best parts of my early adulthood. But he always projected the image of the lone wolf, or the kind of friendly traveler that rolls into town, shakes things up, and then travels on before he could be tied down. And I resigned myself to the likelihood that while we'd still be friends, he was gone and probably would move on. Ed immediately sent updates about life in Scotland, and pardon me. I was, of course, wrong. I was just a stupid, insecure kid that clearly didn't have a grasp on who Ed was, much as I loved him. Because, of course, he immediately sent updates from Scotland, writing colorful emails detailing the funny and often bizarre behavior of the locals, manner of speaking, mostly, and his co-workers. Over the next couple years, he strengthened his portfolio, working on higher level projects, and in his free time traveled around Europe as much as he could. And he made friends, of course. After a couple of years, he finally came back to Vancouver. A seasoned veteran of the animation now, and of course there was a gathering of people to greet him back. Several gatherings really, but I can only remember our first one-to-one meeting. We met for a beer on a patio, and he greeted me with a familiar, "Hey, Tommy boy, how you been?" Priceless. Once we hugged it out and sat down, the second thing he said to me was, "How's Rick and Deanna?" Those are my parents. He'd never met them, but he often inquired about them. Back in school, I had told him that my mom had MS and that my dad had converted our garage into a bedroom so that she wouldn't need to use the stairs, and then retired early to help her out. It was a small thing for him to mention it, but he always did when he saw me. With a genuine interest. And it surprised me how much I appreciated him asking. And he knew I would. It's hard to really express the colossal effect that knowing Ed has made in my life. He was part brother, part teacher, part chaos of the best sort. One rainy afternoon, we got together for a beer and a chat. We chose a little bar, which was close to home, named the Morrissey. The place was empty, aside from the bartender who looked up and said, "Wherever you like, gentlemen." With plenty of seats to choose from, Ed immediately stepped up, took a stool at the bar. Bartender looked up and came over, and then Ed stuck out his hand and said, "Hiya, I'm Ed Wu, and this is Tommy McKenna." The barman shook Ed's hands. "Pleased to meet you. I'm Jeff, and I'll be right with you." He took off to the back to take some packing away. And then Ed turned to me sagely, and he said, Always introduce yourself to the bartender. Look them in the eye. Shake their hand. Then get their name. And remember it. Treat them with respect, and they'll treat you like family. That was Ed Wu, in a sentence. We frequented that establishment for many years. And Ed was always greeted by every member of the staff, no matter how much turnover they had, no matter how busy they were, with a very courteous Mr. Wu. I would often get a second-hand Mr. McKenna. But the point, truly, was that this summed up a lot about who Ed was. Treat him with respect, and they'll treat you like family, and so did everyone that he met. Staff member, crew member, people in line in a restaurant. Over the next decade, many tales could be told. Ed went from working in video games to TV shows and back to feature films. He hopped around studios in town and flew to Australia for a job, worked in Toronto, and traveled through Africa. He once convinced me to ditch my new job and join him in Peru for a couple of weeks. Best decision I ever made. We trekked through the jungle, got stranded, had to get flown out through a storm in an 8-person plane. Loved it. We hiked an Inca trail, saw the sunrise over Machu Picchu, alone. 30 minutes before 300 people were bussed up the easy way. And we listened to Gasolina every night for 2 weeks. You're welcome. All the while, he gathered more friends everywhere he went. In my experience, when you welcomed Ed into your life, you welcomed an entire community. I personally have been graced with becoming friends with some of the most wonderful people in the world, solely because Ed Wu called me his friend. He created swirls of friendship and laughter with every step he took. He was kind and silly and sometimes a bit grouchy if he was hungry. But at all times, he was loyal and made time for the people he cared for. And then he met Shauna. As has been mentioned, at a party. I think it was maybe a pull tab party, or was it the fireworks? I didn't meet Shauna until a few weeks after they had started seeing each other. She was like a rumor, a phantom in the wind. But there was a gathering of folks at an establishment downtown. I don't know what it was supposed to be for, but I'm pretty sure that I'm not alone in remembering it as simply, we must meet this woman. And so we did. And it was a joy. There was a lot of laughter and a curious shift in Ed. He was still Ed. He was still cheersing, talking to everybody. But you could see a little concern. Anyone that was talking with Shauna when he wasn't right there, what are they saying? Don't say anything. Why is she laughing so hard? But it was great. I started this long speech talking about Ed as a guy trying to sort out his life, of wanting to be free, yet have something rooted and solid to call his own. He had worked hard to establish his career and a stable means of living. He had a thriving and vivid community of friends and family. But it wasn't until he met Shauna that he had a solid center around which he could truly become the best, most complete version of himself. After that first time I met Shauna, maybe a week later, I went over to Ed's apartment. And he asked, "So, what do you think?" She's a scientist. Pretty cool, right? I said, "Yeah, man, she seems wonderful." "She definitely thinks you're funny." And he was like, "Yeah, she laughs a lot." It's a bit strange the way he said it. I said, "Well, that's good. People like a good laugh and a great sense of humor." Trying to bolster him. He shifted a gear I was not expecting, and he pressed on. He was like, "Yeah, but she laughs at everything I say." "I don't think she takes me seriously." I shrugged, still not sure how to take this conversation. It's like, "Well, Ed, you are a funny guy." And then he straightened up. He just looked me straight in the eye and he said, "I don't know if I can be with someone who doesn't take me seriously." Here it's important for me to give you a little bit of an understanding of Ed's apartment at this time. He lived on the top floor, not the penthouse, but the top floor of a very nice old building in English Bay with a big living room that had a bit of an ocean view and sunshine all day. It's a lovely place. When you first stepped inside the front door, you were met with what at first glance was a pretty normal sight. A closet in the hallway, a neat row of footwear along the wall, all ready for action. There was a pair of sandals, a pair of decent but well-worn running shoes, at least one pair of stylish and well-worn leather boots, one of them with a zipper for fast action, the other with lace-up for when he really cared. And then there was a pair of Converse street shoes. What was peculiar about them wasn't the brand or the fact that they looked brand new. It was that they were child size. Two tiny little shoes for a 2 or 3-year-old, lined up, ready to go with all of his shoes. These shoes sat there every day, all year, for several years. They were there because it entertained Ed for them to be there. He loved, without trying to show it, the looks on folks' face when they quietly, confusedly stumbled past those shoes, wondering, why the hell are there 2 baby shoes sitting there? And of course, it was funny, but it became hilarious the longer you hung out with Ed and saw new people come through the door. Quietly mutter, "Does Ed have a kid? What the hell?" And he loved it. After you've moved past the shoes and thought you had seen the weirdest thing that you were going to, get into the living room, which seemed at first glance lovely. There's a couch, there's a big flat screen, TV, a couple of plants. One of those bamboo satellite dish looking chairs from the 70s. Just maybe a little dated, but still very cozy. Then you'd notice quite quickly that your eye was drawn almost immediately to a small shrine-like table holding this Buddha skull mask that Ed was given on his birthday, specifically due to its chubby cheeks, with the intention that Ed would always have a pair of cheeks to pinch, as he so loved to do. Beneath that, or beside it, depending on the day, was Batman, a little statuette. It's not here today, but you can imagine a toy about this big, just standing with its arms crossed proudly. Draped across Batman's shoulders, G.I. Joe's arm, casually hanging, 2 buds. Eventually, Godzilla would join them, and much later, Barbie. They were sitting there in place of pride. Again, for no other reason than it entertained Ed that it be so. While you're distracted by G.I. Joe and Batman and the chubby-cheeked man, your attention would likely be drawn next over your shoulder as you sat on the couch to a giant, colossal 5x3 photo painting thing that was a pixelated waterfall with a tiger superimposed over top of it. Your attention most likely would have been drawn to it because Ed had slipped around you and flipped on a switch, which turned it on. A backlight shining out, the strobing effect that arguably made it look like the water was flowing. And an irritating, tweety, screechy, water urinal sound would boot up to simulate flowing water and nature. All of this I was taking in while Ed was still staring at me seriously, confused and worried that Shauna might not take him seriously. And as I tried to construct a appropriate response to Ed's concern, it occurred to me that for a guy who so liked to use the word clown in a derogatory sense towards folks he found acting the fool, there was a unicycle in the closet by the front door. So I said, "So, beg your pardon. Shauna has been here, correct? To this apartment." He said, "Yep." Trying to keep a straight face, clear my throat. "Okay. So she's a scientist that's working a real job with adults." "Yeah." "She's also a full-time mom of a small child." I said, "Correct." "And when she hangs out with you, she laughs a lot." "Yeah, that's right." I was like, "Well, Ed, all I can say is that if she didn't take you seriously, then she probably wouldn't waste her time." He blinked. He stared shrewdly at me. Started dry washing his hands, bit his lip, nodding. said, "Tommy, when you're right, you're right." I am pretty funny. And he never brought up any concerns again. I thought I knew a thing or two about Ed by that point, but it soon became very clear that the man I knew was only a part of the person Ed wanted to be. With Shauna and Christoph and Lily. My friend Ed was more at home and more confident than I had ever seen him. More happy and full of mischief than he had been all the years that I've known him. This last section is too short by far to encompass the enormity and nuance and importance of this family and the life of this man, my friend. But it seems too soon and the loss too great to say more for now. He loved you all very much. I just wish to say farewell to my friend Ed and say to you all, I love you as only one that has known Ed can love many strangers and many friends openly and without question. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Frankie McDonald, and I wish we were here for any other reason to discuss and honor Ed. I first met Ed, more than 30 years ago. He was introduced to me by a common friend that we had in Montreal, Brian Hessian. And Brian described Ed as fun, funny, intelligent, and joie de vivre. I know I butchered that pronunciation, Brian. And this speaks to Ed's gravitational pull. It's not my nature to go meet and then a complete stranger. And I'm so glad that I did. Ed and I just laughed the first time we met and quickly became great friends. Queen Elizabeth said the price we pay for love is grief. And this grief is a three-headed monster. You grieve for Ed. All the goals, all the milestones, all the signposts we pass in life. Ed will miss that, and it's just gut-wrenching. Then you grieve for yourself. I miss my friend. All the interaction, all the laughs, all the travel stories that we had, all the stuff we've done together, I'll just miss that immensely. And then you grieve for Shauna, for Christoph, for Lily, for Ed's parents and family in Montreal, his friends really around the world, and back to Lily. Now imagining Ed is here beside me, and if I left a tribute to him on a sad or heavy note, he would threaten to punch me in the side of the head. So, the first time we hung out together in the summer during the Calgary Stampede, that's when I realized Ed was a special little boy. We were going mountain biking in Canada Olympic Park. So I went in to buy the tickets, however long that takes, a couple of minutes. From the time I bought them, from the time I came back, Ed was wearing a cowboy hat, cowboy boots with his biking shorts, and he was line dancing with a bunch of people to that Achy Breaky song. And I just laughed. I said, how did all of that transpire in such a short amount of time? Because some dude asked if I wanted to wear his cowboy hat. Of course I did. Some dude asked if I wanted to wear his cowboy boots. Of course I did. And I started dancing. I said, how did you know the moves? Because I saw the video. So that really, to me, summed up Ed's personality. Just sense of adventure, funny, engaging, just drew people in and had a great time. And I have so many more stories, but I just can't tell them all today. But when I think of Ed, of course, I think 4 aspects of his personality. His incredible sense of humor, his sharp wit, and sometimes his goofy and slapstick sense of humor, his sense of adventure, his wisdom. Ed had a real good read on the human dynamic and the human experience, so his feedback, books, movies, life, different situations with other people, I always enjoyed that feedback. And then a little later, Ed, the Family Guy, which I think was the sitcom. So I was going to apologize. So all these people have heard these stories before, but the glory of Ed is his stories are always so funny. I don't think you apologize for telling them over and over again. But I just can't tell them all. There's just too many, of course. So if you ever meet Denise McDonald, you can ask her about the epic St. Patrick's Day Fall or the Canmore Highland Games, Slap Your Ass and Yell. You can ask Eric about the ceremonial changing of the pants, or the time Ed perforated his own arse. You can ask Bryce. Actually, book a lot of time for Bryce. There's a lot of stories there. Okay, Bryce was a pilot at the time, and I think he had a free ticket for a friend. Ed, do you want to go to Taiwan? Ed, well, I only have $70 to my name. Ed goes to Taiwan and has a grand old time. Or you can talk to Ed's former physical fitness and life coach, Brian Hessian. Brian will walk you through how to exercise and work out the DERS. And you work the muscle, not the ego. Or if life seems a bit too much, you're a little depressed, or whatever the circumstance is, ask Brian to walk you through how he walked Ed through. Relax, chill. Or again, you can ask Denise about the trip to nowhere between Nicaragua and Costa Rica. And for me, book a lot of time as well. Ed and I, we traveled a bit together. One of the trips was from Nairobi, Kenya to Entebbe, Uganda. It was a 17-hour bus ride on an old school bus with broken shocks, hot and sticky, crowded, and literally chickens and goats. And there was some risk of banditry along the way. And Ed even managed to make that fun and funny. And there's just so many more stories like that. The last time I saw Ed was here in Colombia. And I'm so glad we had this time together. It was just a lot of fun and to get caught up and to, again, experience all these aspects of Ed's personality. So we went to Cartagena. And we partied like rock stars. As long as those rock stars are middle-aged, have one drink, and are in bed by 9. But again, a fantastic trip. And then you see Ed, the Family Guy. After 10 days, he was anxious to get home to his family. So I can't believe 7 minutes has evolved since I started talking, and I have to wrap this up. So I want to thank you for listening. And hopefully, when we think about these aspects of Ed's personality, it can give us some comfort that his humor, his good nature, his engaging personality, and his wisdom that he brought to us and portrayed to other people, give us a little bit of comfort just to realize what an amazing and great guy Ed truly was. Thank you, and take care.
Thank you so much. So I've got good news and bad news. We'll go with the good news first. We are canceling the open mic. Bad news is we have a limited time with the hall, so we're just going to carry on with our last tribute here and then just some closing announcements. If I can invite Corey to come forward at this time. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. We appreciate all the family and friends who came out today to celebrate and remember Eddie's life. Ironically, Ed never had a nickname, but he went by many names. Ed Wu, Edward, Eddie, Eduardo. Also went by brother, cousin, uncle, son, brother-in-law, second dad, daddy, husband, and friend. Okay, I can do this. To say he will be missed is an understatement. There will forever be a void without him. As we navigate this new life without him, I can probably speak on behalf of Shauna and the family that we are so grateful for the amount of love and support from amazing family of Eddie and the friends during this difficult time. The generosity and kindness from so many shows how much Eddie was loved. The only thing that gives me any kind of peace is knowing that he died doing something that he loved, climbing and traveling, as he had such an adventurous, fun spirit. But I know if he could change places, he would want to be here with us now, as he loved his family and friends so much. I will miss his contagious laugh, his smile, his funny, silly dad jokes, and movie references. And I know that Ed is wherever you are laughing, listening to bad music, and watching cheesy movies on repeat. And as a wise one said to me, be cool. Be cool, everyone. So Eddie, be cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. One of the last things I was supposed to do was, as a symbol of the service being over, was to put Eddie's candle out. But I think Eddie is like, bro, that is enough. Like, my candle is out. Let's get to the food. So we're going to wrap up with just a couple of announcements. Family and friends, thank you for your patience and understanding. And you know, when I first started this, doing this, they said you should be able to wrap someone's life up in, 20, 30 minutes. I thought it was a disservice. If you were to each pull out your phones and check your screen time, you'd be like, whoa, that's a lot this week. So when we sit down to honor a life, sometimes it does take a little bit longer. And it's a beautiful display of the impact he had. And for people to come forward and share their memories and their words and their sentiment, it's truly a blessing for us all. So thank you to those of you that came forward. And those of you that didn't get a chance, just again, a gentle reminder, please jot down your memories, place them in the basket at the back. Thank you, Corey, just addressed everyone with a beautiful thank you on behalf of the family. We also want to thank Walkie Funeral Directors, Lori and Christina and Lisa that's here as well. And thank you to the Legacy live stream and to his family and friends that have joined us. I hope that this service was able to bring you a little bit of comfort. And again, we're thinking of you and holding you close today as well. You may have noticed on the back table there's a bunch of fruit. There's a note what we're asking you to do there. It was very symbolic in the Buchanan/Wu home. That they get home and the fruits would be painted and have animation on them. So as a tribute today, we're going to invite you as the activity and the other participation piece while you're mingling, while you're having refreshments, and to just grab a fruit, and maybe you could even write a message on there or draw a comical picture or what it might be. And when you're ready, you can come place that fruit up here on the table wherever feels right for you. It would mean a lot to the family. The most important people here in this room right now are these young people, these young folks, these children. And I love when children attend. People always say, should we bring kids to the funeral? Like, yes, 100%. They need to learn and see what it is we're here doing. that we're grieving, that we're comforting one another, that we are sad and that it's okay, that some of us are angry. You know, we want Ed here. They need to see this healing and be part of it. So thank you to you kids that sat through this and listened to all the memories and stories and shared with us in our tears and laughter. As a closing, we're just going to have a recital, and we're going to have a song to close. During that song, you're welcome to get up from your seats, offer one another a hug if you would, maybe head over to the refreshments, do whatever you'd like, go and draw upon a fruit or what it may be. It'd be greatly appreciated. But if you could just repeat the following words after me. Oh, and last announcement, the plants, all the plants you see around here, they're meant for you, so please take one as you leave in memory of Ed. It's a kind of a parting gift from the family to you. Some of them are indoor, some of them are outdoor. I'll leave that to you guys to decide. But please, if you could take one in memory of Ed on behalf of the family, it'd be greatly appreciated. So if you could repeat after me. There may always be a heartache, and often a silent tear, but forever precious memories of the days when Ed was here. I'll hold him close within my heart, and there he shall remain, to walk with me throughout my life, until we meet again. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes, and dust to dust. Family and friends, in true Ed form, we are going to close with the theme song from Mortal Kombat.
A handful of people can lead you there, Satan.